Light shone through cracks in the rough-hewn cabin door as the master of Riverview Plantation pushed his way inside. Light in the cabin, dim as it was, casting dancing shadows on the freshly whitewashed walls. The scent of smoky, burning whale oil mingled with sweat from their hours of trying to bring a baby in the close confines of the small cabin. A woman lay on a low bed made of quilts and straw over tight ropes of a wooden frame cot, pale, with sweat coming in rivulets, as her low moaning gave way to shrieks of agony. In the distance, the low, steady beat of drums kept rhythm with the tension in the room, getting louder and more intense with each passing second. The cold black midwife crouched down between the woman's legs, trying to assist her in the birth that was slowly and painfully taking place. The baby's father stood to the side with his hands on the mother's shoulder. He was at a loss for what to do. "Can't you give her something for the pain?" he asked. "I has already gave her all the laetrum I can, Master Sir." The crone of a woman placed a piece of old shoe leather in her patient's mouth to bite on. Coming behind her, the master of Riverview cradled Monique in his arms, instructing her to push. As he leaned forward, he felt something under her pillow, and on pulling it out, he could see that it was a butcher knife, covered in blood and chicken feathers. "What's the meaning of this? You know how I feel about hoodoo on this place." "The root worker Mammon Chloe said it would help cut the pain, so I let her put it under the pillow," Franny said. Then after one final push, the midwife looked up into her master's eyes and said, "Is a-comin'." So after hours of suffering, the child was born. Lily white, with beautiful blue-green eyes, the hair the color of wheat already in curls. Never had Franny the midwife seen a baby come with so much hair already on its head. Once she spanked its bottom and its lungs filled with air for the first time, it let out a healthy cry. The father took one look and said, "She's beautiful." The woman looked up to him to hand him the child she had bundled up. "This here a buck, not a wench." The loving father held his son in his arms and marveled at his beauty. Such rosy cheeks, he thought, as he held him down to his mother to see. Tears came into her eyes because no matter how beautiful he was, and no matter how white his skin, he was born into slavery, just as much a piece of property as the blackest slave on the plantation. Sylvester was born that day in 1842 to John LeBlanc and his octoroon slave. John hated to leave Monique alone, but she had fallen into a deep, exhausted sleep shortly after seeing their son. So being hot and sweaty, he thought it was a good time to go out to the well house for a cool glass of whiskey. As he passed the mighty oak just outside the birthing house, he took no notice of the crouching form hidden in the shadows of the low-hanging Spanish moss. Slinking out into the light of the moon, the form of a white woman, heavy with child, came into view. She slowly approached the door to the cabin. Taking the latch in hand, she opened it quietly. Franny looked up from her work to notice her mistress standing before her. The midwife bowed her head to acknowledge Angelique LeBlanc in reverence of her mistress, but both kept silent. She walked over to the bed where the woman lay with her newborn babe. She could see how beautiful and white the baby was, and could quickly see that her own husband was the father. The longer she stood looking down at Sylvester, her eyes filled with tears that fell freely to the cabin floor. Now she knew for sure that Monique and her husband were lovers. Just how she was going to handle this revelation was impossible at this time to tell, but for sure her heart was broken, as she herself was in love with John LeBlanc, and had tried with all her power to make him a good wife in every way she knew how. But this white devil laying before her had bewitched her husband, taken away his love, and captured his very soul. How could she rid herself of her tormentor? She had no idea, but she knew she must to keep her husband and her sanity. Just as Angelique was turning to leave, she was overwhelmed with pain, clutching her stomach and screaming as she went to her knees. Franny called for help and could see there was no time to move her to the big house because the water had already broken and the baby was coming. So she had her placed on the cot next to Monique. She quickly gave her as much laetrum as she dared, then delivered her baby that was quick in coming. When John came back to the cabin to check on Monique and the baby, he was shocked to see both his mistress and his wife laying side by side, both sleeping with bundles beside them. Looking at the babies, he was amazed at how both looked exactly alike. Sylvester and his sister Starla could have been twins.